So just a reminder to ourselves, we are not in presentation mode. We are not doing a webinar. We are just having a conversation with ourselves.
Well, when you start, we start.
Welcome to Data Party. Hi, I'm Allison Holmes. I'm a developmental psychologist by training, a philanthropic funder by day, researcher and evaluator at heart, author by passion, and data enthusiast in my soul. And this is my cat, Egg, who loves to come into the data party.
Wow, that sounded so good. Okay, well, I'm Spring. I'm all the things that Allison is. Plus, I'm also an educator. I am an adjunct professor with the University of Maryland Global Campus, and I am an elementary special ed teacher for PG County. Uh, and then I'm all the other stuff that she said in the middle. Oh, but we're also podcasters.
So we can add that
Yes,
to our list. Here we
we
are.
can. Yes, all right. Add it to the slashes. All right. So, well, Allison, are you ready to data?
Yeah, let's data.
People, we're going to start with the very basics. And the very basics are that data is information. Data is simply information. It's information in a particular form, right? So it isn't just whatever you think data is just. No, data is numbers, it is words, it is pictures, it can come from any kind of sources, it can come from the people that you're serving, it can come from the Weather Channel, if maybe your attendance at fundraisers depends on the weather because you're in Seattle. I don't know. But it could be anything, is my point. If it is relevant, if it's relevant information, it's data. So when we talk about data as this like living being, organic thing, because it is. I think that's safe to say, right? Like you
Yeah,
can have,
yeah.
yeah. We'll talk more about like snapshot data and qualitative data and quantitative. We'll talk about that, but it's important to understand that it's just information. That's the
Yeah.
first step of not being intimidated.
Yeah, it's so important because I think like data holds this like it gets built up. I mean, it's four letters, but it feels like it comes like in
The four
bold
letter
face
word.
print. It is. It turns into this four-letter word. Whereas my kids say it's like, oh, it's a letter word. Where it's like it's another
It's the
D
D.
word, right? It's the D word. I think it comes with some extra meaning behind. It sounds like a word that you're not supposed to say in certain situations. Like it has all of the built up emotion behind it. And it in some ways can almost seem a little profane to bring up in certain contexts. No, it is. It's probably, I think it has the same effect on adults that you see on the playground, where sometimes like you might be using it in the like secret, oh no, oh my gosh. And then there are the other adults who are like, oh, I'm gonna throw this grenade over here and watch that explosion because we're gonna use the D word and we're gonna paste it in some places and see what happens. Because it is that activating in some ways, right? And but I think we just have to name that because it's not, even though like we're trying to say and unpack like what does that really mean, that it is just information. There's so much that gets built up around it that it almost carries like this mythos, right? Of like what is this data that you have to whisper about, that you have to tread around so secretly and with such care and all of those things, that then it just becomes that there's just so much that comes around it. Part of our training, I mean, like we said in our introductions, that was really part of our training. And it was demystified. Like we
Yep.
took that mythos away, but that was part of our training in graduate school and in practice, was stripping away the mythos of that, and then how you can use it But at the same time, that's a really specific use of information. And there's so many other parts of that. And I think something that I've really like learned and seen is needing to expand my own definition of data because our training was really so specific for what we're talking about in information, and that's just something that I've had to learn in my own like practice as a professional, is expanding in that definition and what is included and how to make meaning of information.
I think this is important when it comes to translating because, as we said before, we will say again, we got our start as researchers, we are applied researchers, and it's very important to us that what we say is understood by the practitioners, right? Like that communication is really important to us. And so, like, jargon is not useful unless it's functional, right? And I feel like data is one of these words. Okay, here comes, I got an analogy. Data is
Bring
like
it.
data is like the Jurassic Park dinosaurs in that it has escaped containment. All right, ride with me
Mm,
here.
okay, here we go.
Was a very specific thing. It was used by analysts, researchers, accountants. There were spreadsheets specifically for data. Data had this thing. And then as you start to try to make meaning from your data, your conversation goes beyond the containment, right? If you're trying to understand, I'm not going to go too far afield from what we do. If you're trying to understand birth weight in a region, there's only so much that looking at hospital data of birth weight and you know, what do you call these things when it changes?
Fluctuation? No, curves. We'll go
Fluctuations.
with
All right,
we'll
give
go
that
with
girl
it.
a
Yeah,
prize. All right,
yeah.
good job. All right, so
Charades. We've got 1 point on the
but
board. Let's keep going.
one data point. Yes, looking at the fluctuations is only going to give you so much information. And so you can imagine a world where doctors eventually said, okay, well, maybe we ask these fathers about their wife's pregnancy because I'm keeping it historically correct. So and then the fathers say, well, I saw this, I saw this, I saw this. And then you ask, okay, well, that gives us some information. Yes, mothers, well, I ate this, blah, blah, blah. My point is that data started as this very specific thing, but in order to really understand that data in a world of complexity, the context became important. And but we didn't change the word. We didn't say, okay, this is data and that is a story and that is opinion. Like we didn't do that. We just kept calling it data, 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 data. And so
Mhm.
that's what I mean where I think it's escape contagion that now where people used to say that's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, that's a Brontosaurus, that's a Velociraptor. Now it's just they're all dinosaurs. They're all dinosaurs. And I think we're trying to say yes, and they are all of those big picture things, but also there are still specific subtypes within that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. That's nice. And part of in this translation that we can kind of make is first making like that mental shift into that, like that activating space of like data feeling so intense that when we just put the big dinosaur category of this is information, and then there are all these different types of information, that it can be easier to wrap your head around information, because it could be easier to recognize all the different types of information, all your different types of dinosaur, that you could like, oh my gosh, I do have an ankylosaurus. I love my ankylosaurus. And it's over here, but you may not even recognize that the ankylosaurus is an option when you're just holding onto, that scary data kind of paradigm. But when we think about the information, you can find your Ankylosaurus or your Diplodon and all kinds of things. And tune in for more dinosaur names and breakdowns. So we are absolutely here for
This is where the the intimidation should drop off, right? So if you've never heard of the ankylosaurus or dentalsaurus or whatever words you said, if you've never heard of those, it's okay because that's not your job. Your job is to identify dinosaurs, right? So if you could say that's a dinosaur, then that's your job. So we say that tortured metaphor to break you out of thinking about data as this very limited thing and to understand that if you know your community, if you know your organization, if you know the people you serve, then you know data. You're not starting from zero. If you know that in my Head Start class, there are 15 children, there are 7 boys, 8 girls, 3 of them have siblings, 2 of them, their mothers are unemployed. Boom, boom, boom. That's all data. And what we want to do is to also give you a shield so that when somebody starts to try to like beat you with data, when somebody tries to like, well, you don't have the data. No, you have it. Don't listen. They're just, yeah, I don't see you. Like it's it should not be intimidating because I have a PhD and you have more data about your organization if you are a first line service provider than I do right now. We're not on equal footing. You have more. So like, I don't know, just wanna in these early days of data party, like as the party is happening before the mingling's really going, I just want people to understand you belong here, you're dressed appropriately, you know the songs, enter without abandon.
And I think we see that a lot because I think part of what you're really starting to underscore is what that information, that data is really representing. And sometimes that can get lost when we see kind of these examples of the 4 letter D word that get floated around sometimes, that they're really disembodied. They're just they float around, they get disconnected from the actual source. Like, what does this represent? Like, what are we actually talking about? Like, even going back to like your birth weight example or those descriptions of families in Head Start, when you start disconnecting that and really floating around, like those fluctuations in birth weights or the number of seats in Head Start, at the end of the day, we're really talking about people, right? We are talking about babies, and those babies who are born, and a really important piece of information about them, or seats in Head Start. We are talking about those kids, but it gets so disconnected from that. Then it ends up feeling like we're talking about widgets instead of actual people and important information about that. And was the more we have some of that disconnection, and that it's not information about people and part of their story and how they are moving through the world, it's really easy to feel like that the information is not in service of those people, that it is not their story, that it is not really tied to them.
Yeah, and the people that, are most likely interested in the data party are those that have, if not full intimidation, some hesitation, right, about the data.
Yeah.
So another thing about owning your data and understanding that it's different, all these little coping skills and tools that we're talking about giving to you, it's because if you are a practitioner at some point, you're going to talk to somebody who could help your program, help your organization, help the family communities you care about, who doesn't understand how data and the person connect. So, right, so somebody is going to be looking, and when I say don't understand, I don't mean they can't cognitively work it out. I mean, when they see there's 20 kids in this Head Start classroom, that's all they see. Whereas when you see 20 on the attendance, you might be going, "Oh my gosh, how old are these babies? Okay, wait, how many adults are there? Wait, okay, is there enough space? Do we have enough?" And you start thinking because you don't see 20 in the grid box for attendance, you see 20 active, living, growing, developing babies. But if you're intimidated by your own data, when you get into that space and it's time to have that conversation, this is where you back down. Because somebody who knows math comes in and goes, well, you got this and 9 out of 10 and this percentage and and you're like, okay. When really you could stop this by going, yes, those numbers are all true. Let's talk about what it means for the families. Let's talk about what it means for the hospitals serving this region, whatever it is. Like, this is kind of part of the empowering. It means that you're empowered to fight for what is yours. And oh my gosh, had we all just held on tight to the notion 30 years ago that our data was our data and we need to protect it. Can you imagine the world we be
Right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that it's talk about taking things for granted and kind of like not following some of that out. But at the end of the day, I think there is some of that awareness, right? Like about, protecting that. Um, I I mean, I think we could all think of examples and experiences where it's like, oh no, we can't share that. Like, we can't, like in experiences about like that kind of connection. So there is that awareness, but I think it comes back to really connecting the dot that those pieces of information are are about people, right? And not losing that thread. And it's just really holding that throughout, like, every kind of like, throughout each step, that we don't lose that, because when you're at that, interaction phase, it's there, right? We hold that awareness, so we hold, like, that protection, but then once we sort of lose that connection, then it's like and we become a little bit more lax. Um, but if I mean, you can even just think about like personal examples where it's like, would you like this company to know all of these things about you and about your family and about your community? Like when you lay it bare, be like, oh, heck to the no. Like, absolutely not. But when you are just like clicking through things, right, and you're like, and and then we make those agreements.
Okay. So let's talk about one way we can bring you along. Let's talk about how we can reflect you back to you. And that's in mental models. Okay. Because all the themes, right? Data is about people, data collection is about people, the people who use data, people, like we're all about centering people in in this whole process because we are the social sector, we deal with people. Arguments can be made that everyone deals with people, but we're not going to go there. So we deal with people, and so this is going to be very people centered. And some approaches that we've seen people take to their use of data and their attitudes towards data. We're going to start with frustrated. We're going to just start there. We're going to call it out right now. If you are frustrated, that means you are someone who's in your in your role when it comes to using data, making use of data, you are stuck and frustrated. You're doing stuff, but you're like, there is definitely something not working.
Hmm.
Even if you don't know what that thing is, there's something that's not working.
Hmm.
Does that ring true?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen this, or we've seen, elements kind of lean towards this, especially for folks who have awareness of like these pieces of data and trying like different parts. And so they've made attempts, like sometimes we've seen this where they've made attempts at trying to identify pieces that are not working. And then in those attempts, it doesn't move forward, right? And so no matter where no matter the different areas of your life, either personal or professional, if you have awareness of something and then you try to solve it and then it doesn't work, that is frustrating, right? Like when you have some of those some of those parts, and then it is that's just straight up frustrating, right? Where you are in your head. I think what's kind of interesting about this is it can be like an individual, right? We can see, like, I think we've seen that, like, an individual in an organization, and I think it can also, we've seen it as like an entire organization, sort of like the entire organizational way that they are approaching it. So just wanted to name that, like, as we're sort of describing some of these pieces. And I think what's important about the frustrated part is they're not coming in like that, right? This is the result of attempts to move something forward. And like that, gosh, it feels really relatable, right? That like this is where you're again kind of on that upward trajectory, and then this is a little bit of like that, and not like a final state, but just like that current state, because you're really on that upward trajectory, and then uh
And a big
yeah,
trigger for this one, let's call it out. We've both been in this position. Funders. Like, you're just trying to do whatever you're
yeah.
trying to do. You're just trying to winterize houses, whatever. And then a funder comes and says, "Oh, and give me this data." And you might, again, it's like you understand the pieces, you know what the purpose is, you have an idea, but you're like, I can't. Frustrated is not an ignorance. In a way, frustrated is like, oh, I know all the problems. I just can't articulate them or solve them or find the right person. But it is not coming from a place of not knowing.
Mm-mm. No, no, that is definitely important. And I think maybe one other pattern, like you gave the example of offender, is like that sometimes there really is this element of like external kind of like barriers or pieces that kind of weigh in. So whether it's like, that request from a funder that's just adding an extra layer of challenge, or like another vendor that is not meeting a need where you thought that was going to be a solution, and it turns out like that's not a solution. Perhaps it's added another layer of challenge to it. So sometimes there are these external elements that can be part of that frustration where it's not helping to solve, or is not answering what you thought it was going to answer. So a lot of different elements in there, but yeah, definitely agree with what you're lifting up to praying in terms of that there's a lot of capacity and knowledge that is coming into that situation, and you're still not reaching that goal, which is just straight up frustrating. So it makes a lot of sense.
Well,
So we
yeah,
see you. We see you in this out there. We totally see you. You,
wandering in the wilderness.
we see you.
um,
Yes.
so let's talk about a different, another mental model, and that is the unsure. So the unsure probably used to be the frustrated. They didn't know. They were like, something's not working. Like you said, they came up with a solution. The solution might have even eased the issue, right? And data has legs. They talk about a joke in comedy that, you know, that's what she said. That joke has legs. It can go and go and go and go. That's what she said. But data is the same. It just doesn't end. It does not end. That's one of the reasons researchers always say at the end of all their reports, one of the things needed is more research. Because you can always know more. So the unsure are people who are like, all right, understand the problem, worked on the problem. Now I don't know where to go next. And that's a different, it's a different feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like part of the distinction is like for when you're frustrated, you had an idea, right? There were multiple solutions, and you're hitting that brick wall. The insured are, you might have, you've laid out multiple problems, but you don't have ideas for those solutions. So you may have identified five of the problems, and it's like, and now what? Like, Where are we going to go with that? And so I think that's like a big difference that we see with the frustrated and the unsure is usually where there are differences between that. And so sometimes you might be able to see folks move from unsure to frustrated if you like get to a set of solutions or like, oh, where it's like, oh, here we go, I have solutions, and then you move from like enact solutions and then you reach barriers, and then that's frustrating. And right, to even know what problems you have, like that's a huge step, right? If you're able to lay out some of that. I mean, because even the folks who are unsure, there's some acknowledgement of, hey, I think there's something, right? There is a something that, like, you need to be in the game, and there is like a thing that's there, but you're not even sure like what? You don't know what the starting point is. You're not sure where any of those things are. And that's okay.
And some of the people that are supposed to be helpful are, for all kinds of reasons, not, right? So, one of the things that I always think of, so this is, I'll probably use this example a lot because it's something we all experience. We all experience being told to come up with a strong password, not writing it down, and not using it again. We get security training at work that tells us that. We get uh, little packages on the news saying that. Everybody knows. Don't write down your passwords and don't have passwords that are easy to guess. Don't use them over and over again. However, the people who set up passwords just don't seem to care because you're like, but I hear you, but I have 25 passwords. Can you please give me a solution that will allow me to be as secure as possible and yet remember my passwords? And people go, yeah, that's not what we do. And they move along. And so we all sit in our trainings and we go, yes, I swear on all that is good and precise and computer literate that I will not reuse the same cartoon character over and over again in my passwords. So help me AI. Like, it's when it's a lie, it's just a lie. It's just a lie because it doesn't work. And so I want to be clear that the data party, we're not, we're calling out everybody. Everyone has created this situation. Like, and it is not just, if you are unsure, it is probably not just you.
I don't think that there's any data thing that we've mentioned in the past however many minutes that is an N of one. There's not just a single one that has experienced any of the things. And this would be a fun test. Ooh, okay. I love a new idea and a new fun test. Okay, ready? So like we could totally test this. Whatever the thing is that you have,
Oh yeah.
you can bring
Let's
it into the
see.
comments, bring it in the thing. Let's see if let's test it. Like, because again, science hats on. This is what drives it. Again, this is where the passion is, people. This is literally where we get all excited. Put it like, let's bring it out there. Like, we can totally test this. If you're, again, whatever the thing is that is like driving you right now that you're totally stuck on, test it to see if this
I've
is something
never heard.
completely
Yeah.
new and different that one that Taprig and I haven't seen, or that your other peers have never seen. And this would be like a great kind of like a social, like, it's little like a social test
Yeah.
to see. And we and
I
we
love
can
it.
just and we can just have it.
We would be so energized to find a problem that we've never seen. It's been a long, long, long time
Love.
since we've
Yes.
seen something completely new. And I'll even say, I'll bring this up a lot. I now play the role of a practitioner. I don't play the role, I'm in the role of a practitioner um, as an elementary school teacher. And what?
There's like a hotel commercial that's like, oh, I'm gonna play a pilot because I stayed up. Whatever. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's
I do know that one. Yes, I'm well
Yeah.
rested so I can fly this plane. They go
No,
like, "Are
but
you a
yeah.
pilot?"
So I'm gonna play this today. Yeah, I'm gonna be great at it. Oh,
Anyone who assumes that you can collect high quality data every single day and not have any missing data, run screaming in the opposite direction because they are from fairy tale land. Those are the kinds of things that make people feel unsure because they're like, well, this person said, just collect the data, just document it, just write it down.
it's an exercise in gaslighting at this point. I mean, if you're like that
That's true.
disconnected from like, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
what now? Like,
that is true.
no, no.
Because I think this is what happens. You sit there and you become unsure. I know we'll get back to the 12, but you sit there and you think, what is wrong with me? They're saying this is so easy. All I have to do is collect the data. Why is this not working for me? And
Yeah, I mean, it's three words: collect the data. I mean, get with it. Now, of course, the irony is, again, like training and all of this, and then like conducting projects, there would be entire data collection manuals, right? I mean, the number of data collection manuals that I have like written, like, oh my gosh, I don't think any of them have been shorter than at least like 30 pages. I'm literally
yeah,
pulling
yeah.
them up like in my brain. Like manuals, detailed, very, very detailed. So many details. Yeah. So the iron, yeah, it just so many things. Yeah, just collect the data. Fly the plane, collect the data, change the world, solve, cure cancer. Like, just do it. Okay, so what else do we have? So you could be frustrated, you could be unsure, right? So these things may be resonating with you, or you might be a dreamer. Hey,
I resonate with the dreamers because I too will look at a project and go, yeah, I can do that.
yeah,
Only to get a third of the way in going, I'm so lost.
no, but I like that you said that, to bring, because I think this is emphasizing that this is not like a consistent, like a fixated state, right? That that you could start in one place and then kind of move. So I love that you said that, even though you were like making a little bit of a joke, but that's so true, right? I mean, so the people who are dreamers, I mean, they're coming in, they have some information, right? They have an understanding of things, they have some of those pieces laid out, and they have a vision of where things can go. And that's really great. And like they're seeing, data, informations, their systems, their approaches as a way to really change and be like truly transformational for the organization, which it sounds truly amazing and like an absolute dream, right? And like that's great. So, but we just like we just said in our mini rant, that there are lots of steps that it takes to to make that dream come true. And so things might go like a little bit awry, but to have some of to have the pieces in place to be able to put some of that forward, to have like the plans and solutions there, like it's great when you have those people in an organization, just to kind of give some of that boost and to see what might be possible, even if you might run into some barriers. um, that's always great, because nothing ever goes according to plan. I mean, I think we all know, like in the social sector, in the nonprofit sector, in when you're working with data, it is not cut and dry. But when you can have some of that visioning and those dreams for change, like that is always a helpful person to have on your team.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a late adopter, just kind of in general in life. Like by the time I do something, it's so old hat. And it's not about how old I am because I've always been a late adopter. And one of the reasons I'm a late adopter is I'm like, can you? figure out the problems first. Like I just want I want I don't find it invigorating or challenging to deal with new apps, for example. I want the apps to be in like 4.0 and up because I know how much bandwidth realistically I'm going to put toward it. I might think it's the coolest thing ever, but I know I don't have the time to learn all the new terms and, I love one of my favorite things is Roger Ebert saying, um, when he was asked why didn't he leave Chicago because he was such a, he was so involved in Hollywood. Why didn't you leave Chicago? And he said, I don't want to learn new streets. And sometimes we feel like that. We don't want to learn new streets.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you think of a practitioner who's been doing something in a way that is working. Why do you need something shiny fancy if this way is working? If your way is not working, this is where okay, let's have those conversations. Let's kind of think about this. But yeah, is Chicago working? It seems to be working pretty ding dong well. So yeah, and sometimes the tethering comes out by the skeptics, and it not always, but I mean, part of what you're talking about to bring are really those that are just super practical and may not necessarily be a different mental model, but I think we've seen some instances where there is this other mental model that they are true data skeptics. And I think there are folks, if you could just take a little bit of a little inventory of folks in your organization, there's usually at least a one who are just very data hesitant, and like just kind of hold it so sure about this. And then it's coming from lots of places. And a lot of times it's coming from a really, really valid place, right? Where there've been some experiences that leave them kind of hold on a second, hold on a second. What exactly are we doing? And that can be a good voice that sort of slows things down, makes everybody kind of think about that. And so this is not, like a pejorative, like a negative Nancy. This can be a very healthy perspective to hold. I mean, harkening back to what we were talking about with all of the ethical issues and things, and people can barreling ahead too quickly. This is a really healthy perspective to hold, given some of the really predatory practices that have happened in the social and nonprofit sector, related to people and data and some of those things. So I think it's important to just remind ourselves of that, and just do a little bit of reflection and self interrogation, or just kind of recognizing where people might be coming from if they're super skeptical. That can be a really like I said, a really healthy and a nice balance in the data realm.
Just to wrap up, we have our four mental models. You will undoubtedly see yourself in at least one. And, like any other BuzzFeed lists, you may find yourselves living in different Harry Potter houses at different points in your life. So, with the four, frustrated, unsure, the dreamer, and the skeptic.
Yep.
All right, we
Mm-hmm.
agreed we need some of these at all times, and we are
Mm-hmm.
one of these at some time. Well, that wasn't as clever as hold on. That wasn't as clever as I thought it would be. Hold on, let me try it again. We all need some of these some of the time, and we all need all of these some of the time, and we are some of these. We are all of these some. I cannot get that straight. Else, you say something smart.
So So, and no matter where you fall into the great data sorting hat slash Q sort, um, your organization will also kind of fall into one of these. And you may or may not be aligned with your organization. And so that's also going to be something to kind of think about and reflect on sort of how you are aligned, how your organization is aligned, and then how that changes over time, right? Because these are not set in stone. These shift, depending on how things are moving and shaking in your organization, and that each individual in your organization is also going to have their own alignment. So when you're interacting with your colleagues, just kind of give some consideration as you're talking about different processes and the organization is moving, that people are coming to it just in different orientations, and like that's just something to kind of hold. Not only like you might always try to think about like the role that someone is sitting in, but there are these different approaches to data, and kind of that overall like capacity that people are also bringing in, and it's based on not only their role but really all of these past experiences with data and information and all kinds of experiences, both personal and professional, that's important to think about as the organization as a collective is moving forward. And that can be a lot to kind of situate and hold in your own head, but just in those quiet moments, because I know we're all super bored, just doing our work in
Tons of free
nonprofits,
time, just
tons of free time,
looking for things to
but
keep us busy.
completely. So just add this to your list. But just, again, we're here coming back to the beginning of our conversation where we want to remember that this is about people, and this is another one of those people perspectives that we just kind of offer up, right? And we started this conversation orienting around this central reminder that data is information, and that information is really connected to people, right? We're not here talking about widgets. We're really trying to maintain that connection to people. So
I
yeah.
say we end it there because that was wonderful, and I could only make it worse. So I want to say thanks to everyone who joined us. The party's just getting started. We are warming up. This is it's gonna get spicy.
Yes. Find us on social media. We are there. We find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, at Data Party Book. We would love to interact with you. Come interact with us.
And of course, if you're listening to this before April 28th, then please go and pre-order our book, Data Party. You can transform your organization, your nonprofit organization through data. And if you're listening to us after April 28th or beyond, you can get it in real life. It is ready for you. It's in stock. Go get it. So, but we'll
It'll
put
come to
link.
you faster if it's after the 28th, after April 28th. But if you order it before, it'll be right there ready on
Oh, yeah,
April 28th.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it'll be there. So
Okay, so
good.
if
But go to our website and you can clickety click and order whether it's pre-order or regular order. So the
yeah,
link is right there. So
and we'll put all that again in the show notes.
in
All
the
right.
show notes.
Thank you, people. We will see you next time.
Yes. Party on.